So, hello everyone, and welcome to a chat with me and someone really special. I'm one of those people, my name is Aderonke, of course, and I'm one of those people who, if I'm in a conversation with someone and they know what they're talking about, I always like an opportunity to bring them on a platform and share with the wider audience. So that's why we're here today. We're just going to have a nice, impactful, insightful chat with someone who is known as a change specialist, a strategist, an agile coach, an innovator, and a thought leader. So I'm going to introduce my guest in just a moment, but if you're not subscribed, make sure that you subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll share more information as we go along. So once again, welcome guys. I have with me today Tunde Alabi, also known as Iceman, and maybe he will tell us why he's called Iceman, because for the longest time I used to wonder. I only just found out recently why he calls himself Iceman, and it'll become very apparent as we go throughout the chat today. So let me read out his profile very quickly. Tunde has 20 years of organization change and strategic management experience at C-suite and boardroom level, or at the C-suite and boardroom level across financial services, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, public sector, marketing and communications, and consulting in Europe and sub-Saharan Africa. Now, his ability to provide transformational leadership, strategy-aligned transition, and organizational impact to business-critical initiatives is underpinned by his facilitative and discovery learning approach to stakeholder buy-in, performance enhancement, and organization objectives. Can you guys see why I have him on today? All right, so he's an alumni of Birkbeck, University of London, London Metropolitan University, Institute for National Transformation, and he's also a certified facilitator, program manager, train the trainer, accredited SME business advisor, and certified advertising practitioner from AMCON. He's also an accomplished presenter and public speaker. So ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome my guest, Tunde Alabi, Iceman. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. I didn't recognize who that was when you were reading that, but hey, thank you. It's a lovely welcome, and I'm glad to be in the show. It's lovely to meet you.
I'm glad to have you.
Yeah.
So just so that everybody knows, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria, and you are in London.
Yes, I am. Cold London at the moment, but it's okay. Yes, I am.
And this is the wonderful thing about technology. I think we've fully acclimatized now to this whole fully technology-driven world. And I'm loving it. I don't know about you, but I'm loving it.
Yes.
I think it's great. Yeah.
We can reach.
So today, pardon?
I said we can reach so many people we otherwise couldn't. So
we totally can. We totally can. So I'm really excited about our chat today because we're talking about something that you are passionate about. And I think that's something that we all, at some point in our lives, have to face and have to do and have to be intentional about if we want to see positive results in our lives, if we want to advance our lives, if we just want to become better people. This is something that we have to make a part of our lives on a regular basis. And I'm talking about transformation. So today we're going to talk about transformation. It's such a big word, but it's such a transformational word. No, I'm kidding. It's an impactful word because it's heavy, it's big, and it just reeks with like, what's the word? With potential, right? So you're going to talk to us today about 3 ways that we can make a shift in our lives and literally transform our lives. Whether you're only just getting started out in your career, or you've been at it for a while and maybe you're looking for that shift. That's what we want to talk about today. So I'm going to hand this over to you, Iceman. Let's talk about transformation. Let's start off at the usual genesis. Talk us through, when you say, as a change strategist, as an innovator, as all the things that you are, when you say transformation, what are you referring to?
Thank you very much. I like your question because I think the first thing, let's put it in context. I have this saying, I call them tips from the iceberg. And And they're just quotes based on my life experiences. And one of these quotes is, not every change leads to transformation. So already I'm distinguishing the difference between change and transformation. So let's put transformation in perspective. You know, we have so many change management consultants, you have so many people talking about change, you have so many people talking about transformation, and then those in the know, they'll bring in a third strand, transition. I'll put everything in perspective and then we'll move on to how do you make that shift. Transformation is really a shift in the mind, evidenced by what you do, evidenced by behavior that is manifest. I'll say that again. So when you say transformation has happened, when you say transformation, it means something has happened. Something has moved from one point to the other. Something has moved from a current state to a future state. So, and it's a mind transformation. While we can see it, it's a mindset. Now, it's very, very, there's this saying that I always hear that, one is a product of how they think. It is ever so true. Everything you see people do is premeditated, or a bit of thought has gone into it. So when you see transformation, it just means that something or someone has moved from where they were to a different state, and predominantly better state. We use it in the context of an improved state. Where does transformation come from? How did it all start? Is that life happens. And in particular, this digital age, it's constant changing. I'll give you another tip. The only certainty in life is change.
Absolutely.
Think about it. The only thing you are guaranteed in life is change. Things are always changing. Now, if things are always changing and we are in the world, then how do we keep up with it? How do we keep up with it? So change, the whole body of knowledge, which is change management and transformation and all that, came about, predominantly in the 40s when you had Kurt Lewin beginning to do some research and all that. But they began to really look at it from an organizational culture, a behavioral side of things, that look, change is very, very important. Let's study this. The psychologists began to study and look at it. I know many people don't like it because they say it's fluffy, it's not tangible. Actually, it can be. You can measure it if you know what you're doing. But so change. When we talk about change is when you alter something. And this is the, and we're going to have a little game here, you and I. So I always explain it in these terms. What is the difference between the, what's the similarities and differences between the chameleon and the caterpillar?
The comedian and the caterpillar?
Yes. So I always use that, and let's explore the caterpillar and the chameleon. So in the context of change, a caterpillar changes to something, and the chameleon also changes, doesn't it? So when you look at the chameleon, it changes its color, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Changes its color. When you look at the caterpillar, it changes its shape.
You said chameleon. I thought you said comedian. That's why I was like, huh?
A chameleon.
Oh, the chameleon. Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, a chameleon. So
comedian. I'm like, huh?
No. So you were thinking of basket mouth and a caterpillar.
Yes,
Sorry, basket mouth. Sorry. Oh, my friend. Okay, you're thinking about Bacassia and a caterpillar. What's the similarity? Yeah. So I say, let's compare for a moment the chameleon and the caterpillar. Let's look at the similarities. What would you find? What would you find?
That's a real question.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously the chameleon changes its color.
Exactly.
But the caterpillar, but it doesn't change its state or its form.
There you've got
over
it.
Time.
That is it.
Yeah, the caterpillar changes its state and form over time.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between change and transformation. You see, there was a time in Nigeria when they were begging for change. We want change. And they got the change, but they were still not satisfied, because change does not bring satisfaction. Change does not necessarily mean transformation. Change, you know, the chameleon, and what so many people see, why they don't like, why they're not happy with change. I'll start off with people who don't really like change, and I'll tell you why. But the reason change, you know, when you look at the research, it says 70% of change initiatives fail. They fail because the people involved don't understand it. There are different things going on. They're not following they're not following some structures, and we know why it fails, you know. But look at the chameleon. The chameleon, you look at it, it's green. And based on the environment it's in, it suddenly changes to brown. That is a change. It's altered. And in a company, in one's life, so you can, for instance, you might, I'm looking at you now, lovely, everything. Then 15 minutes later, you might change what you're wearing. It could be blue. Yeah, that's change. But has your character changed? No. Mm-hmm. So with change, we just talk about the alterations you make. Now, with the caterpillar, when it makes that change, it never goes back to being a caterpillar again. That's the difference. Now, that's transformation. Transformation is change that sticks. Change that is sustainable. It's change that sticks, yes. So you're not going back, you know. So it's change that sticks. With the chameleon, the change doesn't stick. It's still a chameleon. Yeah. It's a green chameleon. It was brown. Oh, it's changed, and then it's gone back to being green again. Mm. So when you look at the whole body of knowledge, this is how it works. Change is the process. Okay. So when we're saying, oh, we want change is a process. The professionals, anybody, even you. So your routine, you begin to, maybe you wake up at 8:30 in the morning, and suddenly you start waking up at 6:30 in the morning. And then once you wake up at 6:30, the first thing you do is reflect. The next thing you do, that's change. That's the change process. That's the process. So there's change, the process. Then you've got transition. That's the journey. That's where the work is. Transition is when you begin to work on yourself. So even through that, you know, you can wake up earlier, but if you don't do anything, you just wake up and sit down there, nothing happens. So transition, the transition, when you say transition, is the journey, and that is the critical part of it. And then transformation is the result. Transformation is actually an outcome of change. It's the end result of the transition journey. So when we talk about transformation, it's a future state that we've conjured up in our minds. It's a future state. And this is why you hear companies. I'm going to talk about companies. I'm going to talk about individuals, and I might talk about teams. But from organization perspective, you will hear people say, we're a future-focused company. It means that they are thinking about what success looks like in the future. And then they're creating a change process and going through a transition period to get to that future state. Then they can say that we have transformed the business. Okay. And so it's all about change, but that's putting it in perspective.
I really like that. Yeah. I really like, because, you know, most times when we talk about transformation, we don't see it as the end result. We usually see it as the process. Yeah. So I like that change, transition, a mix of change and transition, transformation. I really like that. I think that's really profound. Indeed. So when you talk about transformation, what is like the starting point? So like you're going to talk about companies and teams and individuals, but it sounds to me like, you know, you have to have a plan for this transformation journey. So how do you develop or devise a plan? What is the starting point? How do you decide that, okay, I need to transform my life, or I need to transform my company? Like, what is that trigger? And then how do you start the process of transformation?
Actually, I like the word you used, trigger. It's similar to, you have to get to what I call the tipping point. And yes, whilst we must have a plan, that is on the contrary, it is far removed from the starting point. That is in fact down the line. Let me take you through the first stage. Now, if we look at transformation, if we look at change, if we look at all these things, remember it's a mindset. It's a mindset. So it's got to start with a shift. So it's going to start with a shift in the mind. In fact, you will hear this phrase called a paradigm shift. So your mind has to change, because you see, your behaviors, when you say this is someone's behavior, their actions being acted out based on their thinking. So I call it, so it's very simple, just for those who, and I'm going to talk from the individual perspective. So I call it the ABC formula. It starts with your attitude, it moves on to your behavior, and then the C is the commitment that we see. So everything you do, this is why in courts, in murder cases, they will say that for you to find the person guilty, it's got to be premeditated.
Yeah.
You know, and that is why people can get off by diminished responsibility, that what they did, they didn't think about it. Because they know that every action is based on forethought. So where do we start with all of this? Now, over the years, as I began to practice, I began to notice some patterns. I looked at what the researchers said, and when it comes to research, I said to myself, 1947, 1950s, 60s, they wrote all these papers. I said, there was no mobile phone then, there was no digital this then. Why are we still living with that? So I use them as reference points, but I'm rebellious that way. I want to generate my own insight based on the current. And I found 4 things. I developed what was called the CRIT model, the CRIT model. And when you talk about change management, transformation, transition, whichever way you jump on it up, there are 4 imperative things that have to happen, or 3 with 1 that cuts across everything. And I'm also going to use, I'm even going to use the universal language of the universe, spiritual language. I read a scriptural text once, and it really struck me. I said, my God, if anything explains change, it's this. And it goes something like, I might be paraphrasing, it says, don't be conformed to the things of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I said, that's the 3 things. Conform. It says, don't be conformed. Don't be conformed, but be transformed. So it says, if you're not gonna, it means that there's a level of conformity that people adhere to. You know, everybody does just, you know, the norm, doing the norm, fixed mindset. But it says, don't be. Okay, if we're not going to be, what should we be? Transformed. So there's the conform, then there's transform. But if I'm going to transform, how am I going to do it? Renewing the mind, reform. So I developed what was called the CRIT model: conform, reform, transform. And those are the 3 elements. So and then inform is, you know, at every single stage, if it's with people, carry everybody along. If it's an organization, if it's an individual, let the individual carry it, you know, report back to the coach or whoever's working with them. So inform cuts across. So the CRIT model is conform, reform, inform, transform. That's the CRIT model. So to answer the question, if you're going to make changes, if you're going to transform your life, the first thing is, let's look at conform. And in the conform state, that's the current state, there are 3 things that have to happen. I call it the 3 A's, the 3 amigos. 1, you have to be aware of what's going on in your life. And you'd be surprised, so many people are not aware. For instance,
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at you now, and I like what I'm saying. I'm looking at you, I can see your eyes, and you're looking at me, you can see my eyes, can't well, you can see my eyes through the glasses. But the question, I
can see the 4 eyes, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But the question I'm going to ask you is, can you see your own eyes?
Thanks to the camera, yes, but I get what you mean, no.
So sometimes we're blindsided. It's just, as humans, we're blindsided that way, that we don't see elements of ourselves. So in the conform stage, the first stage is conform, that there's got to be a level of awareness. You either become aware or somebody makes you aware. Now, as a change practitioner, that's the first thing I would do: make people aware, make companies aware that, are you aware that this is happening to you? Because the tipping point, getting them to the tipping point, is that they must come to realization of what is happening to them. And when they say that you've reached the tipping point, it means that they're prepared to move away from it. So the first is awareness. If you want to make changes in your life, be aware of what is happening in your life. The second thing, you must come to the point of, you must accept that it's not where you want to be. And this is why in change, I mean, we can expand on that much later, but in change, this is why there's a change curve, you know, there's a popular change curve. And they talk about denial in change, that sometimes people are in shock, they're in denial. So you've got to accept. So that is in the acceptance stages where I deal with denial. So if I look at somebody and I say, look, are you aware that this is what's hindering your progress? So somebody says, why can't I save? Why am I not saving? Why can't I get this job? And I can say, are you aware that your resume is not well put together? And they say, no, I got a professional to do it. Or they say all these things, they haven't got to the point of acceptance. Because as a practitioner, a change practitioner, or any good listener can look and say, okay, this is where the challenge is. So they've made you aware, but have you accepted? So acceptance is, you've got to say, this is what's hindering me. Without those two things, we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay fixed. And then the third thing is, we then agree to run with a plan, the change process that's going to be created for us. And that's the conform state. Once you can negotiate those three, then you can move into the next phase. That is so important. And
I really like that. I really like that. I read a book that talked about, the first chapter of that book said, you must take 100% responsibility for your life.
And that's it.
And, you know, oftentimes we spend more time blaming circumstances, blaming people, blaming the side of the tracks that you grew up on, blaming everything else for where we are, as opposed to taking responsibility. And part of that responsibility is what you've just said, becoming aware, accepting it and saying, okay, you know, maybe I'm not where I want to be. And I can't put that on anybody, but now I want to take a step, right? Like you said, accept, and I want to move forward. So I really like that, because when you want to transform, you have to start off with, let me take stock of where I am.
Yeah.
Let me figure out why I'm here, and then let me figure out a way to move forward. So I really like that. So now the three amigos, I like that, three amigos in the conform stage. Take us through the next step.
Okay. Oh, let me quickly say this, because look, I've been through changes in my life as well. Some of them have been excruciating, and you know, even when people are in the blame phase, I just want to say this for those who listen. Even if you're in the blame, it's okay to have a moan fest or a bitch fest, but you're going to come out of it at some point. You know, so it's natural, that happens. You know, let's show a bit of that happens. So that's the conform stage. If you can negotiate that, then I know you've got to the tipping point. If you can't, I'll work with you up to that stage, and I'll just say, look, they're not ready. And this is why some change projects fail, because people are not ready. And how do they show their readiness? Through resistance. So in a company, you will say, oh, we like them, you know, yeah, everything we're doing here, we like the way we're doing what we're doing here. We don't feel the need for change. So as you're driving that change, they're resisting it in different ways. The individuals, I'm okay the way I am, you know. People, you know, I'm okay the way I am, or, you know, I like what I'm doing, you know, you don't know what, it's fine. You don't know what it feels like. And as long as they don't get to the tipping point, you can't help anyone. So once they've got to that tipping point, once they've negotiated the three amigos, they've agreed, the next thing you need to do is look at the T. So it's not in sequence, CRIT, conform, reform, inform, transform. The next thing, you look at the T. If we're going to move from conform, the current state, what's the future state, which is transform? And in the future state, what you need to focus on is, yes, questions like, what does success look like? What does the growth, what does growth look like? What does the destination look like? What does completion look like? So somebody might say that, I don't like how I feel. I mean, this is a common one. So people say, look, I don't like my weight. I don't like this. I don't like that. So the first thing is, they're aware that they're overweight. They accept that these are the bad habits. They've accepted that these are the bad habits, accepted, and that I need to stop them. They've agreed that I'm going to follow a plan, a food plan, a dietary plan, and all that. So then what is transform? Transform will be, oh, I'm 60 kg, I'm 60 kilos, I'm eating healthy. So we have to map. We have to map the future state. So what that involves, you know, there could be some scenarios in there. So what you're saying is, what does tomorrow look like today? That is what transform really is. I know it. I know when we talk about, and I apologize on behalf of practitioners as well. When we're talking about change management transformation, it looks all scientific and psychological and behavioral. It's all those things. But what I'm passionate about is, yes, the subject itself, but it's actually in explaining and educating people in a way that they get it, in simplistic terms. I'm trying to make sure it's simplistic. So transformation simply means, you know what, if we were 10 years down the line or 6 months down the line, what would it look like? So it's tomorrow, today. I remember I was speaking to a big oil, I don't think they will mind, I was having a deep discussion with them, British Petroleum, BP. And I remember one of the executives told me when he said, you know what, the days of taking oil out of the ground are long gone. We've made a lot of money from it. He said, you know what we're doing now is we are spending the money we have trying to find out what our future looks like because we don't know it. That was a profound statement. So that's transform they're working on. So in the transform state, you're saying this is the ideal sustainable state. So transform is, it's no longer the way it was. It's a better state. It's going to happen in the future. So it's going to be a result of things I do. But what is that thing? So you've got to know it. So you've got to be able to, and this is where visualization and visions and all those things come in. You've got to be able to begin to say, all right, what does it look like? Because if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do. I always say, people say they don't know where they're going. I say, you are going somewhere. Even people that don't know where they're going are going somewhere. It's just that somebody might be taking them where they don't want to go, or they're on a route that they don't want to go on, or, you know, everybody will get somewhere eventually. So in the transform state, what you're really looking at is, what does success look like? What is the destination? What is the ideal scenario for you? You know, where are you moving from to? That's transform. Once you have established that, then the work can begin. Reform. Now in reform, there are 3 key elements in there. The first one is learning. You're going to have to learn some new things. I mean, if people are learners, that's easy. Can I say this? Because when you were reading out my profile, it's quite interesting. I've worked a lot in Europe and sub-Saharan Africa. Let me allude to that. Africans learn generally. I think they're best at learning. They read, they take so many things. So learning simply means, from a change perspective, learning simply means, what are the things you need to do? So the person that was overweight, what are the things they need to learn? Learn means new behaviors, new actions you've not taken before. They might go to the gym, they might swim, they might reduce their food intake and all that. That's the learning. They've got to learn to do things they've never. Learning is embracing things you've not done before. Then there's the second one is relearning. Relearning is slightly different, is that it builds on what you already know, what you're already doing, albeit with some tweaks. So relearning could be that, you know, when I'm in a meeting, this is a simple, when I'm in a meeting, I've got this with me and a pen, and I'm taking notes, okay? When I finish taking the minutes of the meeting and I go to the office, I sit down with my laptop, I put it in there, I send it off. That takes too much time. Really could be that now I'm in a meeting, they give me an iPad with a stylo, I write it in, it's transcribing it immediately. And I'm saying, no, I'm not used to that, you know. When I'm writing, my brain is thinking, and you know, you hear all these nonsense excuses and all that. Yeah. And I'm saying, when I say nonsense excuses, I'm saying it because I gave those excuses myself, you know. And we're in a generation where I'm seeing people, they're talking to us, why are you taking notes? Meanwhile, I'm on my laptop, I'm taking notes. And it's quicker, it cuts down the process. And that's the digital age, that is what's happening. So by virtue of being in a digital age, that's why I said change is the only certainty. So you see that, that's relearning. You got to relearn. So you're going through the same process that you went through, albeit with new things. So that can sometimes, that's all right. People get there eventually. But the third one is the bummer. So the first one is learning. Second one is relearning. But the third one is unlearning. And that's where people struggle. Because unlearning means that you have got to replace what you have with something new. So many years ago, people used to use the train. And then the airplane came in, and the train company kept building tracks everywhere and thought that they were the market leader because people had stopped building the train tracks and they were using planes, and they built those tracks all over the place and they went bust because they did not they did not make the change. Now, I want to say this, unlearning is very, very critical, because changes are sometimes forced on us. Sometimes you have to make changes even if you don't want to, by virtue of being on earth. It could be you have to make changes in the workplace. A new MD comes, he comes with a new vision. Change happens. You know, you are a company, you're working in a particular space. You can be in the oil and gas space. They say fossil fuel is the new thing. You've got to make changes. You've got to, your shale oil has to go. You might be an individual, you might be an individual who is, I don't know, let me find a good example, because I want it to be relevant. You might be an individual who is building a career, you know, the way you learn might have to change, you know. So let me give you an example. Many years ago, if you were applying for a particular role, you needed to, if you had, when you looked at the role profile or the job description, if you looked at it and said 80-90% of it I can do, you apply for it. And when you get there, they'll test you on all those things. You're going to, and you should be able to do it. That's changed now. Actually, I went through interview processes. I was scrutinizing interview process. I did an interview process for a client of mine once, and it's changed now. You don't need to know 90%, because we're in a digital age and all of that, and we have access to the internet. If you look at a role and 50% of that role, you know it, apply for it. The other 50% is just to put people off. Now, what is the employer expecting? You know 50% of it. When you go into the interview, when they're asking questions, they're looking for, you know, it could be a 3-stage or more, but one of the stages is the cultural fit. Will they fit into our culture, the way we do things? Technical, they're not even going to say, okay, tell me how you do this. They're going to give you scenario-based questions to show how you've applied those things. And then they're going to be asking things like, are you part of a community of practice? And what is expected is that they expect you to bring the answers, but they don't expect it to come from me. They don't care where you get it from. And you will see that that came from IT. Now it's been widespread. So you get somebody, they get into a role, 5 out of the 10 things that is required in the role, they know, but the other 5, they have access to people who know those things and they can supply. And while they're getting it from those people, they're also building up their knowledge as well. So it's something like that. So in the the reform stage, it's a very, very critical stage. That's the change stage. That's when you're going, that's the transition rather. You're going, that is the journey. There is a journey. You have to get on it. So no matter what anybody, if anybody comes to me, no matter what they say to me, when I'm asking questions or having a discussion with them, those are the things I'm looking out for. Have they hit the tipping point yet? You know, have they gone through, are they aware? Have they accepted? Have they agreed that there's going to be a plan that they're going to follow? I check that. Oh yes, no, okay, I know what to do. Is there any, what's the roadmap? Transform, what's the roadmap? Do they have one? And that's where the plan comes in. You know, when you said, look, of course you have to plan. That's the transform. But like I said, what precedes the plan is the awareness, okay? And then once you've got the plan, you've got to activate it, which is the reform state, where you've got to learn new things and you've got to do new things. So your plan is not just going to tell me the actions. I've got to see that those actions are things that you're doing, new things. I've got to see things you're doing that you've never done before. Change doesn't happen. Like they always say, you're mad. If you want change and you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you're going crazy. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I got to see actions. I got to see actions that are new. I got to see actions that are tweaked, and I've got to see things that you will never do, that you're going to stop doing. So good questions. What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? That's the learning. What are you going to learn? What will you never do? So that's the.
This is quite the masterclass, Iceman, because I see so many journaling activities that can come from this conversation. That if you just sit, and because that's also part of the process, it's doing all these different things that you said, and devoting time to them, because you know everything that you want requires work. Everything that we desire requires work, and transformation is no different. So I love how you've really broken it down, and if anybody's listening, you've broken it down so easily that you can just take out a pen and paper and say, okay, play, pause, let me do this first bit about awareness, conforming, the 3 amigos, all that good stuff, and then taking it from there. So you've literally taken us on the transformation journey. And it sounds it's profound. It sounds like a lot of work, if we're being completely honest.
It is.
But it can be done. So for somebody listening who wants to embark on a transformation journey, and I and this could be, I like how you gave simple examples of even lifestyle choices. You want to lose weight, you want to switch careers, what 3 things would you say anybody should do right now? So I'm listening to you right now, and I'm looking at my life and I'm saying, this is anybody could be doing this right now and thinking to themselves, yeah, I do want to make a shift in my finances. I want to make a shift in my career. I want to make a shift in even relationships, or I want to make a shift in the way that I live my life. Where should we start? I mean, if I was to pick, I would say, let's start with the Conform, the 3 amigos. But what are the 3 takeaways to get us started on that transformation journey that you would say, okay, guys, these are the 3 things right now, as you start to reflect and try to move forward, that you need to start doing immediately? What are those 3 things?
Okay, so let's look at it. Okay, I'm going to look at it as a preamble. So people say, am I satisfied this? What should I do? So I hear people talk about resolutions and all of that. They don't work. I think the starting point is a question. The starting point is a question. And the question is, am I satisfied with who I am, where I am, and what I am? I think that's the first thing you have. Rather than talk about what you want to do, start off with, are you satisfied? Because the thing is that, satisfaction is not just a happy place. Satisfaction simply means that you are not prepared to move from where you are, even if it's a bad place. And we need to understand that, because if you're satisfied, it simply means satisfied to me in this context does not mean you're happy. Satisfied simply means that there is not a compelling enough reason to move away from where you are. Because remember, when we said the Conform, one of the things, when we looked at the 3 amigos, you can be aware, you may not be aware, but even if you're aware and you haven't accepted the need to move, you're not going to do anything. So, and I tell people, I said, look, you're not ready. So a wish, a resolution doesn't mean anything. You've got to get to that tipping point. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, am I satisfied with where I am?
So, but is it safe to say, Iceman, is it safe to say that, especially for people going through midlife crises,
and I've been through
is it safe to say that sometimes people can answer that question with a no?
Yes.
But maybe life has beat them down so much, just maybe things haven't gone the way they've wanted them to go over the last 20 years. Life is just not what they expect. And so you get to a place of complacency where you can't shake off, there's a compelling enough reason to want to change, right? Yeah. But you've given in, you've surrendered, you've let yourself go.
Here's the difference. Remember you said 3 things, and I said you ask yourself that question now, and you said, you've been beat down, hit down. So you are you satisfied? You say no. Then we move to the next question. But you said, maybe they've been beat down, there's not a compelling enough reason. That is it. You have to you see, the moment you say no, nothing happens until you are ready to do what it takes. It doesn't, that's what nobody said transformation is easy. Nobody said change is easy. The first thing, are you satisfied? No. Now, when you say no, we don't start, well, I certainly don't start the work with that person or that organization just because they say, oh, we're not satisfied with where we are, we want to change. I've been into companies where they say, in fact, what happens is, from experience, when we do change projects and transformation projects, digital transformation and all that, and with digital transformation, it just means agile comes into play, business agility. You find that they want to change, we map it out, we start it, and then the problems start. And what you just find is that it was just a nice to have. They're not really committed what to go through because they can't let things go. So when somebody says, well, I had a midlife crisis, well, so I say, fine. So are you satisfied? Now that you have identified where you are and what's up, are you satisfied with it? They'll say no. The next question is, are you prepared to let things go? That's where the problem is. So when you say that, well, life has hit them hard so much, they're not prepared to, it doesn't matter. So I'm afraid. Be afraid, but do it anyway. I've lost out. Go out there and be bold anyway. And that is why in the reform stage, you have relearn, then do something, relearn, unlearn, learn. So I say that the second question is, the first question, are you satisfied? No. Okay, are you prepared to let some things go? And really, when you find somebody has been through a bad experience and they can't get out of it, it's because they're not prepared to let things go. And what are they not? Their emotions, they're not, so they're not letting go of the fact that it happens to them. They're not letting go of the fact that, yes, they might make some changes again and things may not work out. They're not prepared to let go of the fact of, let go of fear, let go of emotional pain. They're not prepared to let go of the bad habits. So I can tell you that it's rather than say it's formulaic, the thing is that if you are going to start the journey, hard questions have to be asked. And can I say this as well, is that I can tell someone who's going to be successful on the transformation journey by just the C word, commitment. The problem is people want people committing to something. And commitment means that you've identified something, you've made a pledge to key into it, and then you are actually doing it. It doesn't matter what you've been through. So you're feeling the pain, do the different thing anyway in the pain, and over time, you won't even feel it. You see, it's the alternative action. It's all these big things, but it honestly is, you must take action. You must take some sort of action. But like I said, it's a mind thing. Before we even take the action, the shift has to happen in mind that I'm going to do this. So I remember a time in my life where I just said to myself, I was a toss-up between what should I do? How should I work? And while I was doing it, I just knew I was wasting my time. I hadn't made that commitment. And you know what? When I look back, I said, what was the commitment I just made? I just dusted down my CV, my resume, and I just started sending it out on, and everything just blew up. But I realized, and I said, so how come I couldn't do that initially? How come? And I just realized what it was is that I wasn't prepared to put in the work to dust down that resume, look at it, revise it, make it relevant, work went in there. And what you find is that people don't want to go through the so-called hassle of the new actions or the change in actions. They're happy. And that's why I said they're satisfied. That's why I asked the question. Satisfaction to me means that you are not, it's not just satisfaction to me isn't that you're content or you're happy. Satisfaction to me is that you are unprepared to move from where you are. That's what satisfaction means.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. That's a fantastic way to look at it.
You are unprepared to move from where you are. Satisfaction simply means I'm staying there. No matter.
And you're ready for the consequences that come.
Yeah, well, whether you are, and that's it. So
whether you're ready or not, they're gonna come. Yeah.
So let's now move into murky waters. Someone who's in an abusive relationship. Why is it that you can't get away? Well, they're not prepared.
Yeah.
Because they're not prepared. The focus is so much on where they're at that they can't see themselves doing something different. There's fear. Oh, I might lose, loss, separation, rejection, desperation. So they're not prepared to move. It is challenging when you're trying to make the change, but it can be done.
Do you think that sometimes the reason why, because I want to sit with the whole people struggle with making that shift. I want to sit there a little bit because a lot of people have taken a hit at some point in their lives, right? And that hit has affected their mental states where they can't make that shift. So is this where a coach or an accountability partner comes in? Because sometimes you almost need that kick in the rear to say, almost like like, how you're a basketball player or whatever, you have a coach that's screaming down your ear, like, get up and do this, or this is what you need to do. Could that help for some people who maybe, they're not satisfied, and it's not because they don't want to make that change, but again, there's a mental block, so to speak.
Okay, so
how do you fight that mental block if you're in that place?
So let me pick up on something you said. You said a lot of people have been through. Well, a lot of people haven't been through. Everybody has. Everybody.
I was going to say, yeah, everybody actually.
But remember,
Yeah.
this is the CRIT model. And I've been through the C, the conform, reform, transform. Now, how do you make that shift? It's in the I, the inform. Now, in the inform stage, that is where everything you're doing, make it accountable to somebody. And I tell you why. Accountability allows you not to become indisciplined.
Right.
That's the key, and that's why I say inform. So if it's a company, carry everyone along. You see, when you're going, when we're doing things with companies, you will hear the stuff say they didn't carry us along, they didn't engage us, and that's where employee engagement comes into place. That's where stakeholder engagement. They didn't tell us, we didn't know, we weren't aware. Okay, when it comes to the individual, we know that change is challenging. The process is there. The transition, the journey, the transition is difficult because you're experiencing all sorts of emotions. And the reason you're experiencing those emotions is you're doing some things you've never done before. You're having to let go. There's an element of loss. You're having to let go of things that you've held onto for so long. You're going to have to let go of them. Which means
sometimes it's mindset.
Yes. So I always do this. When I say transformation, I say transformation, you know, is I do this arrow, I do an arrow in an upward trajectory like that. I said, that's what success looks like in so many people's mind. And they say, yeah, success is, but that's not what success looks like. Success looks like this, that, you get there, but it's all sorts of things. So when you have a plan, when somebody is looking at it with you, the reason they're there predominantly is to make sure you get there, but is to make sure that they pick you up. They don't let you stay down when you fall down. You're going to fall over. You're going to have days that you don't want to talk to anybody. You want to go back to where you are. That's when they come into play. And that's why is it that, I mean, let's learn this from life. But why is it that the most successful people have coaches? They're so successful, and yet they still have coaches. These are guys earning millions in baseball and basketball, and they still have coaches because they understand that days they're going to go off the rails, and that person is there to say, no. And that's where discipline, it's a culture of discipline, you know, because when you are trying something for the first time, and that is why when you've learned something for the first time, that's why you need a coach. You need a coach, you need an accountability partner, you know, but you need somebody with relative, it helps if they've got a relative amount of experience in the, you know, in taking, not in the area, but in taking people through that journey. Just like, say, if for somebody like me, I just use the CRIT model to help people. So if you are going to really make it, I strongly suggest that, first of all, yes, you've done you're aware, you want to make the moves, you've mapped it out. The moment you start going through the transition process, have somebody that you can talk to about saying, this is what I'm doing. I'll give you an example. I have somebody, I mean, my colleagues in my company were making fun of me one day when I took them to see another company, but the person is a member of my family, but very successful. And they said, oh my God, we have seen this is the only person that Iceman listens to, doesn't, and I'm accountable to that guy. They said, oh my God, you know, they see me as a mentor, as a coach. They were shocked. And I just thought about it. I said, really, what did I say? I said, I mean, it's the first time you just sat there, you were docile, you were listening, you were saying what, and I thought, yeah, that's actually what I do. I just go to him and say, this is what I'm doing. And why am I doing that? This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing next. Okay. And I'm trying to make sure that he's seen any chinks in my armor. He's telling me that, look, this is not going right. He's seeing things that I can't see. And when he gives me that feedback, I'm able to make the tweaks. So I'll say another thing. A tip from the iceberg. It is impossible to transform if pride is in the way. Because you see, and let me tell you, I always ask people, what is humility? They say, oh, humility is this, humility. It's very simple. Humility, this is how I define it. Humility is the absence of pride. And if you're going to make changes in your life, you need to be humble. Because the way to make it effectively is have somebody you're accountable to. And if you're not prepared to be accountable to somebody in, whether it's your company, whether it's from an organizational perspective, you will get somebody coming in and say, who's this person? What do they know? That's the first thing. What do they know? What can they do for me? Humility. If you want to make changes, you've got to accept that what you're simply saying is that you're going to get help. To make the change, you need help. Because if you didn't need help, you would not be where you are. It's life. Life happens. Everybody that makes a transition does it with the help of somebody else, be it on a large scale or on a small scale. So the answer is yes. I strongly recommend that you are either accountable to someone, you hire a coach, or you get somebody with a coaching experience that can help you through the journey. And really, the work is not, the value is not in their experience. The value is when you fall down, they're able to help, they're able to drag you back up. So I always say this, and this is why I say it's okay to fall down. It's okay to fall down because life can trip you over sometimes. It's okay if you fall down, but what is not okay is sitting there.
Yeah.
You got to get up and go again.
Fantastic. This has been a great conversation. Lots and lots of tips from the iceberg. Lots and lots of information, just really good stuff. So thank you so much, Iceman. I think that you've given us all a lot to think about, even if it's just taking one thing at a time, not trying to go through the entire exercise, in one day, but just, let me ask myself a few questions, how aware am I of where things are in my life? Just let me take stock. Yeah, where am I at? Have I accepted it? Am I ready to move forward? What am I going to learn? What new thing am I going to learn? Because what they say, I can't remember the quote, but there's something about if you stop learning, you stop growing. Your life pretty much just stays stagnant and there's not much movement. So what am I going to learn? What am I going to unlearn? I like the unlearn bit. Unlearning is how did you say it? No, you said relearn. I like the relearn one as well. Yeah. Learning, doing something you've always done, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think technology, this is evidence to that. If this was pre where we are now, I'd be looking for how to get on a plane to go do an interview, but now I can sit in the comfort of my home. You can sit in the comfort of your home. We can still make this happen. So looking for new ways. And I think what you really pointed at was not just new ways, but more efficient ways of doing the same thing,
And perhaps next time, and what that then moves on to is being agile, doing things in increments and then inspecting them. And so, it's so important. Yeah. Look, the way the world is today, it's for so many things. We're in the digital age, there's automation, there's robotics, there's all things like that. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, and you have to adapt. You have to move with the times.
Indeed.
If you want to transform it and get to where you're trying to get to. So thank you so much. Yes. Are there any last tidbits, any more tips from the iceberg you want to bless us with before we call it a day?
Okay, so because you alluded to this, I think it's on my DP. I said, the day. I said, everybody knows the day that they're going to die. That day is when they stop learning. Yes.
Interesting.
You die on both on the inside, on the outside. The other thing I'll just say is that look, it's we let's be clear, let's be real. People come on with this fake it if you make it. They come on with triumphalism. That is, look, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be scared. It's okay not to even know. It's okay to be lost. What isn't okay is to stay in those conditions. That, if there's one thing I can say to anyone just to round up, is that it's okay. Okay doesn't mean that you have accepted it. Okay just means I'm aware of these things. What is not okay is that once you are aware, so I empathize with ignorant people that don't know, people that don't know, it's the four competencies. So there's something called unconscious incompetence. When you don't know what you don't know, it's a bad place to be.
A bad place.
Yeah, when what you don't know, you don't even know. But when you have conscious incompetence, you know what you don't know, but then you don't act on it, it's worse. So I just want, you know, people be calm. People, it's okay, it's natural. Even the people, your role models have bad days. Your role model have insecurities. All those things are part of life. But the key thing is that once you're aware of those things, you've got to do something about it.
Yeah. Wow, wow, wow. This has been so good.
Thank you very much.
This has been really good. Thank you so much. And, you know, like I said at the top of this discussion and chat was, you know, I know so many amazing, incredible people who are just experts at what they do. And because I'm not selfish, you know, when I have one-on-one conversations and I feel like, you know what, I feel like so many people can benefit from this. I like to take an opportunity to do something like this. So Iceman, thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yes.
And even wanting to do this in the first place. Thank you for wanting to do this. I think that you struck a chord for many people. And hopefully we'll start to see people's lives transform, whether it's the big transformation or the little ones. Transformation of any size, you know, is forward movement. So thank you so very much. Tunde Alabi, a.k.a. Iceman. We literally don't call him by his name at all. Like, it took me a while. I think it took me a while to know your actual real name because I met you as Iceman. So I was like, oh yeah, he would have a real name, wouldn't he? So, but we call you Iceman, and maybe we won't get into the secret of what Iceman is. But there is a profound meaning to that name, and I think you alluded to it when you mentioned tips from the iceberg throughout our discussion today. But change specialist, strategist, agile coach, innovator, thought leader. You have shown us all those different facets today, and we are grateful. So thank you so much for sharing. Where can people find you on social media?
Well, thank you for having me. So yes, you can do Tunde Alabi, but there are 8 different ones. If you see a guy with glasses like this, you know it's me. The other one is that you will also see me on Metamorphosis. The Metamorphosis. So my company, my Instagram page, it's META. So it's Metamorphosis. So it's METAMOR 46, Metamorphosis. Yeah. You know, so that's me playing, that's me doing transition again, numbers, alphabets and all that. So if you just do Metamorphosis Instagram, you'll see quite a lot of what I've done on change. So I've dedicated Metamorphosis to doing a lot of change and transitionary work. You'll see it there. Communication, collaboration, change, culture, it's all there. I think that's the starting point. If you do Iceman, Tunde Alabi, you might see 1 or 2 things, but I think it's best to do Metamorphosis, where I've put together the body of knowledge. And
brilliant.
Want to or email, it could be iceman@metamorphosis.com.
Fantastic. I won't be surprised if you get quite a number of emails from this conversation. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day.
And you.
And hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
I'd like
and you'll come at us with something else
yes.
to ginger us to get our lives going in the right direction.
And thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and come back for more chats like this here on the channel. Thank you for watching.